Hi, this is Theo, and you are listening to a special edition of Between Two Trains. This week we bring you all the candidates for Chamblee City Council. And now, Between Two Trains.
Van Pappas here with Between Two Trains, and today we're talking with Thomas Hogan, who is running for Chamblee City Council District 3. Thomas, welcome to Between Two Trains. Let's start off with you telling us how you've lived in Chamblee now for about 18, 19 years, right? Mm-hmm. And how long have you been on council?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for presenting this format, for allowing for each of the candidates to present their credentials. I think this is a very super valuable thing that you're doing, and I just want to let you know that I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've been on council for 12 years, and I've lived in Chamblee for about 18.
Okay. And obviously, council's a part-time gig, so you have a real job. Not that council's not a real job, but what do you do as your profession?
Well, city council is the most full-time, part-time job I think that we know
That's a
about
great way to
here.
put it.
That's right. But my financial endeavor for income to feed my family is I have been a mortgage banker for the past 20 years.
Okay. And so when you moved to Chamblee 18 years ago, obviously Atlanta's a big metropolitan area. What drove you to our area over any of the others, Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, wherever?
You know, it was a real random choice that I made in selecting Chamblee because my first wife and I at the time were interested in purchasing a property that we could possibly do a renovation to, find an equity gain in that transaction, sell it, and move on to the next house. And as so often happens, and as happened to us, I purchased and did the renovation and found that the spot that I was in was a really good spot for where I wanted to be. And so my interest in continuing to do that activity subsided pretty quickly.
So you've moved into Chamblee now, back 18 years ago. Was there something that prompted you to say, hey, I want to run for local political office here in Chamblee?
You know, that's a great question. I've been involved in civic planning, social activities, civic activities for a long time, even long before I got to Chamblee. Going backward chronologically, prior to being in Chamblee on the City Council, I was very active in the Buckhead community. I was a member of the Neighborhood Planning Unit, NPUB, which is Buckhead, Buckhead proper with Chastain, some of Chastain, and all the way down Peachtree Road. And the NPUB system is a way station for city council business as it relates to various permitting procedures to allow an opportunity for the community to weigh in on important matters that might be important to them. The city of Atlanta is large, and it's very important that they have a mechanism to be able to have citizen input, and the NPUB is just that. Being on the NPUB is a matter of either being a representative from a neighborhood association or being a representative of the business community. I was the chairperson of all of the business community representatives for the NPUB. I did that for a couple of years. I was the VP for government relations at the Buckhead Business Association for a couple of years. And prior to that, I created and ran a nonprofit up in Washington, D.C. called the Enterprise Development Foundation, which was focused on doing inner-city economic development using entrepreneurship education as the core curriculum for students to be able to go to work and shadow people that own their own business so that they could kind of see how business people live and breathe in terms of, as a measure to try to see if I couldn't broaden their vision and their horizons for what they thought might be possible for themselves.
So mentioning the business community, let's go down that path here in Chamblee. I want to talk, how passionate I am about our business community. Do you personally think that Chamblee is a business-friendly city?
I do.
Can you expound on what makes us a business-friendly city? Sure. What do you think?
Well, when I first got on council back 12 years ago, this place was busting at the seams. Back before the financial collapse, this was the idea was if you build it, they will come. And we had just recently undertaken a massive upzoning We had, put in place zoning criteria and requirements that really kind of shaped the city in a way that is kind of the foundation for what we're experiencing as a lot of the good things happening today. And I felt like that train had left the station. And so when I got on council, my goal was to try to provide for a mechanism to be able to support the business community as it came in. And I'm telling you all this because it's important for your listener base to know that there is not this idea that we have the Chamber of Commerce that is pro-business and the City Council and or the mayor or staff that is not. In my time on council, we not only did I modify the Chamblee Area Business and Professional Coalition to create the Chamblee Business Association that vastly changed the conversation about business in Chamblee. We did a lot of the work that led up to your having founded the current Chamber of Commerce with exploratory committees and that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of energy behind really kind of supporting that path. As it relates to economic activity, I asked council and was approved. We actually created a committee of the whole called the Economic Development Committee in Chamblee. And for a year, we met monthly exploring a variety of different economic development functionality that the city could actually undertake. It was really, we were really growing and really trying to learn and really trying to understand what would be best as a way to be able to grow our city. And one of the things that kind of happened, I don't want to say serendipitously, but simultaneously maybe, was the annexation of Huntley Hills and subsequently the annexation in Decca, because the larger footprint for the city created a whole different structure in terms of what we were doing from a service delivery standpoint, which gave us the real flexibility to answer the call that we had had for some time in creating a position at the city of an economic development director, to creating a public outreach manager, a public relations person. I mean, we have a lot of mechanisms in place that are here because of the desire that we've had for years that's been growing in order to be able to put in place a significant support mechanism for businesses to be able to thrive in Chamblee.
Yeah, that's great. So, keeping on the same theme with the businesses, we've experienced a lot of new development in Chamblee, and that's caused valuations of properties to go up, and obviously it's also caused rents to rise. It's creating a market that has more challenges for the small mom and pop business, which we do have a lot of. Do you feel that the city has any obligation to help try mitigate the rising rents for the businesses that have really been our backbone for decades?
I think the core purpose of a city is to provide core services. I believe that the real purpose of our function is to provide a great place to live, work, and play. And I think that the city inherently answers to the call of council, which should be a direct representation of our citizens on exactly what those services are. And it is unquestioned that the citizens of Chamblee have demanded that the city be active in providing an environment for smart growth for Chamblee. There is, anytime you have, Van, you got to remember that when we started this, we were nobody's favorite. And we pounded and pounded to build the brand equity of even the word Chamblee. We did the Chamblee Business Association. I don't know if you remember, I actually hosted an open mic night at Get Coffee for over a year.
I do remember that.
We were doing anything and everything possible to drive the concept that Chamblee was cool, arts-friendly, open-minded, progressive, just a wonderful place for families to be able to live and thrive. The old story used to be that people would live here, get married, have a child, and move to Dunwoody. And, the mayor and I had, as we would sit around drinking beers, the real objective of, if we can just get them to have their baby and stay, that it would be a victory.
Yeah.
But we have the Chamblee Business Association, the open mic night, the Chamblee Farmers Market, the Chamblee Fun Mud Run. I mean, everything that I...
Taste of Chamblee.
The Taste of Chamblee, my gosh. Everything that I've learned...
If I remember right, how did you participate with the Taste of Chamblee?
The Taste of Chamblee was created as part of the Centennial Celebration.
Right.
It had probably about maybe 2,000 people in the middle of Peachtree Road during 2008 as a city-sponsored function for being able to have the city...
That was part of their 100th anniversary.
Exactly. So then the financial crash came. And we all sat around, freshly elected, and it was like, well, what are we going to do now? And I had just gone through and led the recreation of the business organization and knew that I had a tremendous number of people that were passionate about wanting to move this forward. And so I took the reins of the idea of the Taste of Chamblee and turned it into what is our current modern day festival and concert that we actually have. The main stage, if you remember, we had the main stage contest, which was a function of the open mic night where we had local acts compete to be able to win some time on the main stage, and we booked popular acts to be able to come in that night. We had vendors and food service providers. We actually had even, I think the last year I did it, we actually had a sustainability fair where we asked all of the businesses in Chamblee that had something to do with sustainability to come and participate and showcase their products. So we've gotten way off topic. The point
That's
was,
okay.
The point
It's good
was,
stuff.
I've got a lot to say. I've been doing this a while.
We only got a certain amount of time.
I know. I do want to say though that the brand equity of all that we did contributed to a push toward making Chamblee a place where people wanted to be.
Sure.
It made us very desirable, and people have answered that call. They're coming in droves. They're wanting to build. You talked about the increase in development. We increased 24% in development from 2017 year over year to 2018.
Right.
I mean, we're a hot place.
Well, let's merge that thought into the next question that I have, which has to do with transportation, because we are bringing more people, more development into it. And so with all the new commercial areas that we have, we know we have, especially in our downtown, limited parking. It's a problem, right? Would you agree it's a problem?
I think it's going to be an issue, yeah.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on how the city council and the city as a whole, what solutions do you have for that? And does that include any electric scooters?
Okay.
I'm throwing the electric scooters for a reason.
I'm going to cheat a little bit. I want to finish my answer from the previous question.
Go for it.
You had asked me does the city have an obligation and what is our obligation to people as it relates to growth? And I'll tell you that we do. And in as much as we've fully contributed to making Chamblee an amazing place, we also have a very great responsibility to make sure that moving forward we have proper management so that mom and pop shops can afford a cost per square foot to have their place. This is really being talked about in the community as with the term affordable housing, and it's a great topic to talk about. But affordability is something that will challenge us moving forward, and I would venture to tell you that it needs to be studied, and we don't have the answers currently. Okay. Just to get that out of the way. Transportation is an amazing challenge, and I believe that it's being answered with the way that we're developing, the way that we've got Chamblee planned as it relates to the density that we're encouraging people to build with, the walkability that we're encouraging people to install, the Beltline style pathway network that we are that's now a major part of the multimodal, the master transportation plan that we've just approved. Everything that we're doing speaks to being able to work in a way where we can encourage people to work locally, to be able to use bicycles, scooters, to walk, whatever the case may be. We're recognizing that scooters, just as an item, are being seen as a problem in other areas.
Yeah, that's why I brought that question up.
Well, I think we have a solution for that. I think that our solution is, if you've seen the work plan that's planned for the front of MARTA, you'll see that it's a beautiful plaza, and it's not unreasonable to expect that there might be pre-approved docking stations for certain certain of those types of transportation methods, whether it's an e-scooter or an e-bike or whatever. I mean, you might have a floating disc one day. But the truth is that our responsibility, because the last mile of connectivity is the powerful mile. And I believe that if we have a docking station equal in our parks as an offset to the park itself, then people can walk out of their neighborhood, get to the park, hop on a scooter, ride it to the MARTA station, have a place to be able to dock it appropriately, get on the train, and go where they need to go. And conversely, if you're arriving from the airport, you're riding MARTA up to Chamblee, you can get off of that. You can take Uber or Lyft or whatever, or you can hop on an e-bike and scoot over to Keswick and hop off it, put it in its appropriate docking station, and walk the last couple of blocks to your house.
I'm glad you mentioned Uber and whatnot. Do you feel like there's some communities where they're designing actual Uber drop-off points where?
We are.
Okay, so we have that currently in the plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll see. We don't have a parking requirement within a certain distance from the MARTA station. We are leaving it to the market for, hey, you're about to invest, $47 million in a big, huge, beautiful building. You need to know what your tenants need. You need to know what your customers need. We've told you that, you're going to build what it is that you feel like you need. And if you want to rely on the idea that more people are going to take MARTA or ride Uber or Lyft or whatever the case may be, that's a decision that we're comfortable leaving to, the developer to make.
Well, I want to make sure that we have enough time for everything, so I do have another question that changes gears a little. Since the recession, we've seen that the price of housing inside 285 has crept up, especially the last few years. It's increased. All right. And we have a divide between the younger populations that are moving to the area who look at the rising costs as a way to increase their net worth because they're just getting started in life, and the older populations who've been here a long time who struggle to stay and say, hey, I'm a senior or I'm close to being a senior, and these rising real estate prices are causing a lot of headache for my pocketbook. What solutions do you think we should support we want to still increase the property values, but we also want to ensure that our senior population, our aging population is not priced out of Chamblee?
Well, we have exemptions and discounts, or in some cases downright free services from the city for people that qualify, where both people, if there are two people, or the one person living in their primary home is above a certain age. So we have built-in mechanisms to be able to provide what I think is necessary relief for people that are entering into a phase of their life where there is a significant reduction in their earning power.
And I think that's about the best you can say, because is there any other thing I
can talk for 3 hours on the housing market. I mean, that's what I do all day, every day, and have for 20 years in a number of capacities: residential lending, commercial lending. I've done analysis for market studies on multifamily projects. I've done a lot of stuff. So I'm seeing what's happening in Chamblee, and I feel an obligation to bring not just the joy of all of the upside, but I feel an obligation to bring sobriety to the nature of what kind of a community are we trying to be. If we want to be Buckhead and Brookhaven, all we have to do is step out of the way, because the market's going to blow past us.
I know this is a big, broad question, but if you're reelected, what is your vision for the next 4 years with you being a council person?
Are you asking what I see it as? What is the city, or what am I going to focus on?
I think a little bit of both.
Okay, so I think that
and I know that's a broad question. You could probably also talk 3 hours on that as well.
I could. The reality is, I think that the master transportation plan and the comprehensive plan update are good, and I think they provide the framework for what we're doing for the next couple of years. The only way that we need to have, I think the only thing that we need to intervene on as it relates to that is the concept that is kind of elusive right now, and that is that you brought up at the beginning, which is affordability. I think that there is going to come a time where we're going to have to put some mechanisms in place to be able to provide for, requirements for affordable housing units, and possibly even for.
And when you use the word affordable, because I've heard a lot of people use that word, and some people get confused. You're not talking about like Section 8 type housing. You're talking about like workforce housing. Is that what you mean when you say affordable?
So I'm going to get technical with you here for a minute, because our listeners hopefully can look this up too. The industry identifies the function of affordability, as you know it, as workforce housing, as 80% of the AMI, which is the average median income for your standard metropolitan statistical area, your SMSA, which is for us, that's this part of Atlanta. It's called Sandy Springs, but it's for this whole area. That currently is approximately $59,500 a year, which, you take that and give it a monthly, divide by 12, and then what they're suggesting is you've got to be able to fulfill principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, or rent, whatever that housing cost is, it's got to fit under 31% of that monthly AMI.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about in terms of affordable. When we visited Asheville recently, they had their range of what they were considering affordable, and it was 0 to 30% AMI, 40 to 60% AMI. And what I recognized that they were doing was they were taking on the burden of not just workforce housing, but they were also talking about public housing. They were talking about what is the government's total responsibility for all housing. And I can tell you right now that one of the things that I'm hoping that we study is that we can identify who, between Chamblee, DeKalb County, and the state of Georgia, who is it that's going to be responsible for providing solutions for which parts of that puzzle. I presented to council the idea that we would study affordable housing. Council and staff thought that there was a need to have some programs be implemented and explored first. I think that that thought's kind of putting the cart before the horse. I think we really should study it and find out what our need is and what is it that we feel like we can reasonably fulfill. But at the end of the day, affordable housing to me is meeting that workforce housing component. And we may have an affordable housing issue, we may not. It depends on whether or not we're suggesting that the MARTA station in the middle of town provides a convenient access to people to live outside of Chamblee, or maybe we have decided that workforce housing is part of the character as it relates to the community members of Chamblee, and therefore we don't care where people have to travel from to get here. It's not a matter of fulfilling workforce housing needs. It's a matter of making sure that we maintain a certain character of our city.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I want to end this with allowing you the opportunity to express to the listeners that are listening to this why you should be their representative on City Council.
Okay, so I'll try to keep this under half an hour.
You got 2 minutes.
So I've been on the council for 12 years. I'm very passionate about what I've helped contribute to what we're seeing as amazing results from our hard work. I believe that we have a lot of big stones left to turn. I do believe that understanding the financial planning and funding solutions moving forward is going to be key. I'm just the person to be on council as it relates to that. In addition, I believe that if we're going to have a long-term relationship with a successful airport, there needs to be much more attention and much more effort to create some sort of a mechanism to be able to make sure that both entities are working in concert moving forward, whether it is materials that we require in certain homes in certain areas to be able to deafen the obvious noise from an airplane taking off or landing, whether it is us making sure that we zone properly to create buffers for where people are living so that people can work closer to the airport, making sure that we are managing the air quality, advocating for potentially, currently the curfew at the airport is a voluntary curfew. I would like to make. I would like to explore with the FCC, FAA, what it is that we can do to participate in that designation, and whether or not we can create some periods of time throughout the course of the night where it's not just voluntary. Maybe it's not mandatory. Maybe there's something we can create called semi-voluntary, where those people that are landing because they're short on fuel or are conducting a life flight,
The lifeline.
those
yeah.
folks get in regardless. But the people that are flying in order to be able to attend a concert or to be able to meet, a business meeting with some sort of timeline, those folks can wait and come in at other times when people are awake and doing their business. So there's the airport. I'm a big fan of exploring something that you and I are very intimate with, and that is the idea of the municipal broadband. I think that we are gaining enough concentration downtown where lighting up dark fiber in a downtown area for the purpose of being able to create a very amazing and valuable centerpiece to what might be an amazing way to attract technology jobs to our area is something that I'm really, really excited at exploring. So, the ideas of how it is that we're moving forward, continuing the work that I've done at Dresden Elementary along Chamblee Tucker Road with regard to affordable housing, these are only the tip of the iceberg for what I'm hoping to do and why it is that I hope that listeners see me as someone who they might like to support for re-election.
Well, thank you, Tom. We appreciate you coming on the show, and good luck in November, and we'll be watching to see what the results are. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you, Dan.